So Fox News is continuing to defend Republicans who are holding our nation's debt hostage. Let's talk about it in today's video. Hi, I'm Mike Greiner. I'm a lifelong Democratic activist who's concerned about the direction our country is taking. I'm also a lawyer and an academic, and I'm here to help you stand up to the BS of the MAGA crowd. So there's been some important polling, and what that polling has showed that people want Republicans to back off on the whole debt ceiling issue, concerned about the fact that it could destroy the economy. The key question is demonstrated in this ABC News Washington Post poll, which found that only 26% of Americans agree with Kevin McCarthy's position that they should tie spending cuts to approval of a debt limit increase. A broad 65% say that the issues of debt payment and federal spending should be handled separately. And this is true, by the way, even among Republicans. Fewer than half, 48%, support coupling the debt payment with cuts in federal spending. Similarly, a recent CBS News poll found that, number one, people generally think the economy is improving, and number two, Biden's favorability rating is actually starting to tick up a little bit. But most importantly, on the debt ceiling issue, 68% of people say raise the debt ceiling if there's the possibility that the United States would default. So when the question is asked within the context of the possibility that there could be a default, and taking into account the fact that really typically spending is handled separately from paying the debt, people generally favor President Biden's position. So with these data in mind, check out this video from Larry Kudlow, essentially saying that President Biden is being unreasonable by refusing to negotiate over the debt limit. Check it out.
Hello, folks. Welcome to Kudlow. I'm Larry Kudlow. So there he goes again. Or to be specific, there he goes again. President Joe Biden on the campaign trail, blasting off with blarney and misinformation. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Mr. Biden is incapable of telling the truth about the economy or his policies, or for that matter, anybody else's policies.
Okay, starting with the BS. This is where it's hard to watch Fox News sometimes. But, of course, they have to start with name-calling. Calling President Biden a liar, saying he's incapable of telling the truth, blah, blah, blah. But when you look at the facts backing up these claims, you actually find that basically he's telling the truth. Let's check it out.
So, here's Mr. Biden in Maryland with some of today's blarney. Take a listen and weep.
Some of our Republican friends in the House are talking about taking the economy hostage over the full faith and credit of the United States. Now, I made it clear in the State of the Union, I will not negotiate whether or not we pay our debt. I will not allow this nation to default.
Okay, that's all true. Where's there a lie in that? Number one, it's in total agreement that Republicans are trying to hold the debt limit hostage so that they can get spending cuts. That is a fact. Secondly, it's a fact that if we default on the debts, it would probably throw the United States and probably the entire world into a major recession. Number three, President Biden is saying he's not going to negotiate over it, which makes sense considering the fact that during the Trump administration, Democrats joined with Republicans to raise the debt limit 3 times on a clean basis with no negotiations. And that makes sense, given the fact that the debt limit has nothing to do with spending. The debt limit is simply agreeing to pay the bills we've already incurred. You know, if Congress wants to reduce spending, they have a way to do it. And the way to do it is to pass a spending bill through Congress. But they know they don't have the votes to do that because the cuts that they'd be proposing would be far too unpopular. So instead, they're going to try to essentially force everybody else to agree with a small minority by holding the debt limit hostage. So let's see how Kudlow tries to justify it now.
I mean, really, Speaker Kevin McCarthy and the Republican House have no intention of defaulting on the federal debt. They've said it time and again.
Okay, simple problem then. We just won't negotiate, just raise the debt, right? That's what he said. If they have no intention of defaulting on the debt, raise it. No problem. Let's keep watching.
And it's incredibly irresponsible for Biden to say he refuses to negotiate.
Why is that irresponsible when under Republican presidents, of course, Republicans and Democrats join together to raise the debt limit? No problem. It's only when you have a Republican House and a Democratic president that all of a sudden these Republicans are so concerned about fiscal responsibility. These Republicans who, by the way, incurred 25% of all of the national debt that is owed by the United States now under one president. That would be Donald Trump. Let's keep watching.
That makes him responsible for some kind of debt default in the worst case. He's in denial, by the way.
You see, this is where the Orwellian talk happens. The Republicans are saying, we're not going to increase the debt unless you agree to our conditions. Something that they would not have the power to do if they were just going through the normal legislative process. Secondly, much of this debt that was incurred with their support, with their leadership, in fact. So in essence, they're saying we don't want to pay the debts that we incurred with our president, Donald Trump, and then to blame the Democrats for it. Then they're saying that because of the fact that Biden is simply saying, I want you to treat me the same way you treated President Trump when you were voting to increase his debt limit, he's being irresponsible, according to Kudlow. And he's at fault if the debt limit doesn't get increased. But I mean, if the Republicans say they're in favor of increasing the debt limit, just increase the debt limit. Very simple solution. Let's keep watching.
The House has gone Republican, and the House has the power of the purse.
That's right. Okay, let's talk about that. The House has the power of the purse. So the way the House would address this is by passing legislation to pass a budget then that the federal government would have to follow. The problem is, again, they don't have the votes for that. So instead, they're going to essentially throw a temper tantrum and hold the economy hostage to say, unless you agree to these things that we don't have the power to pass through the normal channels, then we're going to throw the economy under the bus. And what's more, a lot of these debts that we incurred that we're refusing to pay right now are debts that were incurred by us and by our president, Donald Trump. You can see kind of the convoluted thinking that they're doing here. But you can also see where this makes sense when you look at the data. They're trying to insist, oh no, Republicans are not in favor of throwing the economy under the bus, because as it turns out, when people see that there's a chance that we could default on our debts, suddenly everybody is opposed to these debt limit negotiations. When Republicans are confronted with what such debt limit negotiations would involve, things like reducing benefits in Social Security and Medicare, which they do support, and I'll link to the proof of that down below, they call him a liar during the State of the Union speech. But this is the kind of convoluted thinking that Fox News is engaging in to try to convince people that somehow black is white and up is down. That Republicans, when they're holding the debt limit hostage, they don't really want to default on the debt. And that Republicans who increase the debt by 25% under Donald Trump really are fiscally conservative. And that this is an appropriate way to handle things, even though when a Republican was president, they just passed debt limit increases, no problem. Well, this video is getting kind of long, but you get the picture. Kudlow and Fox News are desperately trying to respond to the data that we see in the polling, trying to convince people that the legitimate fears that they have, that these actions by Republicans could jeopardize the United States paying its lawfully due debts, is something, A, that's normal, and B, nothing to worry about. Well, if you want to see how long I've been warning about the debt limit being a legitimate issue that Democrats should be concerned about, check out this video I did over here almost 2 years ago. I'll see you then. In the meantime, let's hope for continued progress. Thank you.